this stuff matters because if we ultimately know and believe that they need to be here a lot to make changes, then we need to set it up so that they can easily be here a lot and so that they want to be here. And so those things are in a way clinically connected because they get you to that end result.
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jacobowitz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go. All right, what's up, chiros? Welcome back to the Family Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and this one is an extra special one because I have the pleasure of interviewing one of our own interns, gone crazy, wildly, ridiculously successful and impactful. A lot of hyphenated words there. Dr. Andrew Rupp. Andrew has this thriving family practice, associate doctor, team-driven. He's learning. It's absolutely dialed in. It's absolutely scalable. He's having a blast. And in the same breath, he's just been a world-class husband to his incredible, just rock star wife, Laura, who's been foundational to the success of that practice in every way, every step of the way as well, while just achieving multi-rock star status and having 4 beautiful kiddos. And so Andrew is a legendary family practice, but he's also a legendary spouse. He's a ridiculously world-class father, and he's maintained incredible. In fact, he's a little too fit. I tell him this all the time. Like, if he could just gain 8 to 10 pounds and get a little more dad body, I'd love him even more. But if anybody ever tells you that you can't have it all, that you can't really get after it and have this high volume, really successful family practice, and then grow your family, stay fit, be happy, have all the time all together, well, they just didn't figure it out themselves. From the beginning, this man says, and I believe him, that he knew he was focusing on pediatric, prenatal, and family care. And obviously, especially as he went through his school experience and he got tapped in to some of the crazy stuff I was talking about and speaking and going through, this family practice has always been his dream practice and the full plan from the beginning with Thrive Chiropractic. He immediately joined the Pediatric Club at Life University, the incredible, awesome, world-class school that he graduated from. And he was a leader through that club and through many places. I remember Andrew was a leader already in school, and I just couldn't wait to get to know him better. He got an internship at the leading pediatric and family chiropractic office in the world, which I guess is PwC Chiropractic. I've heard of that place. Sounds like a rad place, you know, to get an internship with. Seems like it'd be pretty fun. Like the clinical care, the patient experiences, and the jokes and the chiropractic stories would be pretty legit in there. So even though this required moving from sunny Atlanta to the wintry suburbs of Chicago while his wife was 34 weeks pregnant with their first child, in his words, it was worth it to bring the best level of care and training back to their area, back to their hometown, back to where their family was going to set up shop and take root. So this guy here, he's as analytical, sciencey rock star as it gets. Valedictorian of life, his class at Life University. And the learning never stops for Andrew. He's front and center at every Zoom, every training. As he says, when it comes to taking care of someone's child, anything less than the highest level of training and expertise is unacceptable. And I love Andrew because he will be better at everything he does tomorrow than he is today, because he has that relentless humility and hunger to lean in and learn and continue to get better. That has led him to get his PX Pro certification with the PX Docs movement and team. And this first-class care and world-class clinical results is what drives him. And it's really the unrelenting message that he lives out all the time. Every kid counts. It's time for Dr. Andrew Roop. Let's do it. All right, man. So we are rolling here, and the way this plays out, your beautiful, illustrious introduction, I'm going to say many, many nice things about you in the introduction, okay?
There's a lot to say.
There is. That's perfect. Perfectly
Don't tell
stated.
Laura that.
Perfectly stated. How much time do we have, right? So what I want to do, and what we do every time on this podcast, is we go through the stages. We go through the growth and development stages. We are both pediatric, prenatal, and family chiropractors, and you need to understand the sequence and the milestones and the order with which a successful brain and nervous system and health in child would develop. And for our practices, that's one of our babies, right? And so for you and me, we are just all outers, all in, and you have 4 beautiful children, the 3 rambunctious, wonderful rock star boys, and then beautiful baby Sayla, right?
Yep.
So what I want to start with is that stage, which is a continuous stage. You started your practice. We'll go back and get into school, and we'll get into your internship, and we'll get into startup, and then we'll get into scaling, which is what we do with every one of these interviews. But I want to learn about your dad journey. And a lot of times parents, we don't do this. And this is why we're not going to do this here starting out. What disappoints me more than anything else is when parents sigh and say, oh, it's so hard and it's so exhausting. Well, did you think it was? I mean, what did you think it was going to be,
You had
right?
the wrong expectations.
You got the wrong expectations. So you're going to end up with the outcome that, that your brain dictates. What are your favorite parts? It can be plural. There can be a lead horse. What have been your very favorite parts of building this beautiful practice you have while building your family and taking this journey as a dad?
That's been something there's always been a pull and tug at. And I know even just yesterday talking with you guys, Laura would say still is a source of friction sometimes. But it's something that as much as I wish there's times we would have grown faster, or wish there's times we would have done more, I feel like we never had a phase where family life was completely irrelevant. There's never a time where Laura and I specifically, because I would say the husband role is even before the dad role. So I feel like there was that always as the priority. So even if I can look back and be like, man, I wish we would be 5 times as big as we are now and made impact even sooner and faster. And we'll probably talk to some of that early stage stuff. I know that is a piece that we never missed, and so that makes me feel like we did something right, even if there's other rooms for improvement.
I think you did.
That was a solid one.
I think you did the most important thing right, and I don't think anybody could argue with this perspective. There will always be continued times where you can pour gasoline onto the business, pour gasoline onto the practice, and let it rip and grow it fast. You do not get the time back with your spouse, with your wife, and with your kiddos. And I think right now in this profession, awesomely, there is a lot of support and a lot of conversations and a lot of podcasts for moms and starting and growing your practice while starting and growing your family. I don't know of too many dads that grab 2 mics and sit down and talk about this. And we can't talk about the other one. We didn't do that one. This is our life. God put us in this role as dads and husbands in that way. So the friction is healthy because the friction keeps you aware. What would we say to a patient who's having symptoms? Symptoms are signals to make sure that you take care of yourself. And so when tough times come, it actually keeps you in check. And it says, okay, family first, family first, family first. And so if you go back, so you did that with excellence. You and Laura will always be too hard on yourself because that's all of us as human nature. Yeah. So I've been blessed to be your buddy and your mentor all along the way and get to see you just do this with excellence. What helped you in the beginning to consciously make that choice that you would never let the family become irrelevant and miss out on that?
I think the answer is similar to the answer that I gave. Did a PX Club call recently, and they asked, like, hey, what would you do different? What would you change about your school experience, where we're at right now? Yeah. And honestly, it's not a whole lot, but it's not because we're anything amazing, but it's because we've had amazing connections and mentors. And I think of that in the same thing of the family sense of we had amazing family personal examples. We had when we went to college together and had, amazing uncle that's a pastor, and we had amazing small group connections, and we had you guys truly as role models too, because you were the blending of that of like, okay, business owners and people that are immensely caring about their families. And when we were just students, we just like showed up in Illinois and shadowed for a day, it wasn't just like, hey, nice to meet you, enjoy your day. It was like, come over for dinner afterwards. And it was cool seeing in real life, not just the Facebook at the time. I don't know if Instagram existed when we started.
Good point. Yeah. I love that that's aging you and me now. I'm not the only one being aged by that. That's wonderful. Yeah.
It was, but yeah, you guys were like, come hang out, and it's like, we'll put the kids to bed together and we'll like have dinner together. And so I think the biggest thing was always just having positive examples. And so that's where it's like, yes, we intentionally read books and had hard conversations and did things to work at that, but we also had the blessing of seeing it done right for a lot of people.
Seeing is believing. That is a very true statement. That's how God designed our brain to operate. We have to have a real, actual mental image in our brain that we believe in because we've seen it to be true, and then we can go after it ourselves. There is stuff that you have to literally kind of go beyond that point and step out on a leap of faith, but the best path is not to have to do it that way. The best path is to seek out mentorship who is truly doing, not just saying they're doing it. I love that you kind of brought that in there too. The places not to trust are Facebook, Instagram, and students listening. So we'll stay there. Students and startups listening, and even a doc out there who's just looking to grow their practice and grow their family relationships at the same time, because we are a both set. Both of us go for and, not or, and we go for the both answer. But you want to go get into their space. And for Christina and I, our favorite thing for sure, and it's not even close in this whole game that God has us rocking and rolling, is mentorship. Yeah. And the reason we're so obsessed with paying it back forward is because we had the same life that you had, with solid mentorships, not just the chiropractic practices they grew and the technique and their communication and their marketing and their business, but we really were intentional about, and you guys did this with excellence, like somehow we invited ourselves to dinner, because we wanted to see if it was real. We wanted to see if there was a tethering of these things and it was beautiful all throughout their life, or if it was a gap. And so
if you just hang around long enough and get in the way, then you get invited.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like that mosquito.
Yeah, it is like the mosquito for sure. It's a great principle. And now we're intentional about it because we want to show, and we do this with every intern, we do this with as many students and shadows as possible. We've had our club PX leaders over to our house all the time. We make sure the kids are there. We're not sending the kids. They could go with grandpa and grandma, but we want them to, it's kind of funny, go ahead and grill my kids. I got teenagers. They'll tell you the freaking truth, ask them and the relationship we have with them. So go for that. So that the take home strategy, because this is a take home strategy podcast, we're going to go through interviews and stories and seasons of our stages of growth. But each time, my job here as the moderator, interviewer on the podcast is to pause before we go to the next one and say, this is your take home strategy. And it is essential as a student to find a mentor who doesn't just have the practice that you want, but they have the life that you want, the relationships and that side of things. And so, okay. Let's just stay there, because now chiropractic. So I wanted to go to that stuff first. That was wonderful. Yeah. In the chiropractic lane, as a student, where did you find your spark? Where did your certainty? Do you remember the moment? Do you remember the quarter? Do you remember the club? What was it that lit you on fire?
It was, and we haven't even talked about this much, so I don't even know if you remember, but looking at chiropractic schools, visited and toured at Palmer before ending up going to Life, happened to be on campus the night before they did something called a Spiz Night, which what the heck is that?
Son of a gun, that's right.
And we went to Spiz Night, happened to stumble into a student that mentioned it.
And then you didn't even go to Palmer.
Perfect Storm presentation was going on by this guy. And someone, I don't know if this is true, I think maybe Dr. Jen was there. And
James Peterson too.
She said this was, or maybe you said this was the first time publicly sharing all of her
First
story.
time ever. And I told it and I've never really done that again, because I told it in third person. I told it in a way that it was a patient, and then at the end, people,
And so that was my first, at that point, I had obviously decided on chiropractic. Wasn't the plan in undergrad, but decided that route, and was kind of realizing how off-base healthcare at whole was. But then that was the turning point towards family, kids, wellness, not just non-traditional healthcare. So then started following PwC and you guys online. You're pretty vocal online, even
the older
12 years
older
ago,
assets of the online world. Yeah.
And so it kind of just followed you through the journey. We'd have random little interactions of like, hey, what do you think about life?
Yeah.
And ended up going there and just, got involved in the first sort of pediatric trainings that you were doing, and literally has been the foundation from before day one.
Awesome.
Because that was like, it sounded just so much more fun than taking care of grumpy old people.
Yeah, and that's just how we're wired, right? We knew family was coming for us. You guys met in your relationship there started early. So absolutely. Beautiful. Man, the way I see how God orchestrates all this, like every time, I kind of knew that, but I've totally forgot about that. And the way God is just orchestrated and put this mission and vision in front of us. And I know this is going to relate to so many of you. If you look at your story and your sparks and your moments, you're like, wow, that is so seemingly random. It's never random. Mm-hmm. That is God up there just, calling the plays. And we'd have to really try hard to screw it up with how much he is helping us take this work to the world, honestly, and do it together, which is the most fun part of it. Okay, so now let's really dive deep under the chiropractic hood as a student. So I know you love all the jobs that a chiropractor gets to do. You love to deal hope, empower, educate, communicate. You love to build a care plan and interpret scans, and you love to analyze and just annihilate subluxations. When you were going through your student journey, what do you feel like gave you the most confidence first? What things were you studying? What seminars were you going to? If you divide it up to like adjusting versus science, I think I know the answer knowing your brain, but going all the way back then, what do you feel like kicked you into gear with real confidence?
It was big time science. It was the 4Ds, I think.
Yeah, it's probably,
a few more at this point.
Yeah.
It was the 4Ds. It was chestnuts. 14,
100%.
Like
Differentiation model.
That was like, that nailed it in. Because I remember, like you described, going through school and they're like, here's the theories of how subluxation works. I was like, well, this makes a whole lot more sense than a theory. And so it was truly understanding. And then that's when even at this point, when I might get frustrated or burn out or like just kind of in a lull, it's going back to some of the like deep dive clinical stuff that gets things firing. It's like, all right, let's double down on what's actually happening and how impactful this is. Because no one's can completely avoid getting in a rut or getting stuck.
Not even close.
And so that was the start, and that's still kind of the.
We are such nerds. It is remarkable, and we don't hide it either. We never have, never will. And so, but the take home. So here's the take home strategy for chiropractic students and chiropractors listening. This is one's for everybody. Chiropractic students, you're going to get in a lull. It's called boards and histopathology and biochemistry and a whole bunch of classes that you will never use at all in your life in practice. And then in practice, you're gonna hit a moment where you're like, I need to go back and douse myself. I need to go back and get sparked. Or, I guess at Palmer, they called this biz night for so long. We choose weird words in chiropractic to do, to hang our hat on.
That's not a normal person word.
No, it's absolutely, which probably that's chiropractic. We don't really want to be normal, but we want to make chiropractic normal. So there's a dance there, right? So for some chiropractors listening, you are exactly like Andrew and I, and you love the science more so. You also love the philosophy. We were just talking about our ADIO shirts we're wearing to this. Mm-hmm. The philosophy and the delivery, the art, my goodness, we freaking love those. But everybody has a lead horse. And it's just how God made you. You're either a science person, you're a philosophy person, or you're a technique person. And the moment you reach a lull, and you will, go back to your wheelhouse. We go back to science. Some people go back to the green books, and other people go to the 17th Martin Rosa. Dr. Ken Cooper and Dr. Jay Coleman are going to go back to a SOT seminar, right? Yeah. Or the Jack Himmerman and Jenny Leiss are going to go to a Gonstead seminar. We all have our wheelhouse where you get in that room or you get in that book and you get in that study. I read neuroplasticity stuff. I read old stuff and new stuff, and I just become fascinated. I become invigorated, and game on, party on, let's go. All right, startup. So going through, you had the mentorship. We did not have, there was no playbook. We had program-ish stuff, but you got started in this model. You were pure with it. You were principled with it. What are the one or two things that moved the needle most? And kind of like Gary Vee, when he talked about like, I knew this stuff was working, so I doubled down on it, but I wish I 10x down on it. What did the most amount of good as a startup, and what would you tell somebody to 10x down on in that season?
So this, I think we could have both a positive, what do we do right,
Understood.
but then more of a looking back, I feel like we took it easy. I was talking to some guys last night from, the training of, wow, looking back at, you had 10 visits a day and you had one kid, like, what did you do with all your free time? And so I think I look back and know that we absolutely could have pushed harder and hustled harder and been way more active online. But you're right, there wasn't PX Plus. There wasn't the framework and startup systems that exist now. That's not giving us an excuse. It's just saying it's easier now. We'll put it that way.
Great point.
So I feel like we absolutely could have done more of that. But the one that did move the needle that we probably could have even hit on harder was some of the workshops. Yeah. And I remember doing a Perfect Storm a month or two before we were even out and having as many people there as we do these days. And so I think that's the one that we probably should have and could have pushed harder, is the in-person stuff. If we had done that with the solid branding, business building online, it would have been even more exponential.
More outputs. The way we teach it is, especially really when it comes to our marketing and branding, framework and system, it's all about outputs. It's just reps and reps and reps and reps, and it creates it. Because they were working for you.
It was, and I think we did a good job of, thanks to you guys, never deviating from pediatric, neurologically focused. So that had the long tail effect of building trust and always being on one topic. And so there was that built over time and over years, but we could have added fuel to that by just hitting it harder.
Thankfully, you never. So communities.
We never had to pivot.
Communities pay attention, and chiropractors, we live in our own island, in our own world, and we go to all these different seminars. We go sideways, and we go sideways, and we don't think they're watching, but they definitely are. And the reason there's a low level of trust within chiropractic is because we've done a poor job branding, but they also see us as well, you're just going to do something different tomorrow. You're going to move from my keto supplement salesman to my probiotic salesman to my shockwave salesman to my decompression salesman. Chiropractor is blowing the wind like nobody else. You don't see dentists being I got a new model of dentistry. You don't see eye doctors, there is such a level of trust with other professions because they stay the course. Even medicine, they're you get drugs here. We're going to scare the hell out of you. We're not going to listen to you. We're going to blame genetics and give you drugs. And people are more.
You can count on it.
Yeah, totally. But hey, give them credit. They stay the freaking course.
I think they're even just thinking of this last week. There's positive examples of that where we had a little girl that I think the year maybe leading up to COVID was under care as a baby and did awesome. But then were people that laid low in that phase, hadn't heard of in 3 or 4 years. The girl's struggling with some stuff now, and they'd reach back out because they know that. Another family that had been to a different pediatric chiropractor in town a few years ago ended up with tube surgery, ended up with other interventions that weren't the plan. And now they're here at this point. And I said, well, why didn't you go back to that other place? Why are you here? She said 2 things. She said it was the pediatric focus. And I looked at our 2 websites. Ours has, who do you serve? Kids and families. There's a whole big list.
Yeah.
And then she said it was the pediatric focus and it was the scan stuff.
There you go.
Is what made all the difference. And so that just consistency is the magic.
It is. And it's awesome to know that as a startup. So the take home here is choose your brand, choose your clinical model, and choose it for a career. And that is hard. By the way, you're write that one down. Oh my, yeah, write that one down on a forearm tattoo because then that you have a much better chance of, because very few people do it, but the ones that do are the ones that build a legendary scalable practice later on. Because you can't scale instability. You can't scale 17 things at once. You absolutely positively, now Andrew's practice, Thrive, is so scalable because it's literally been consistent and it has preached and delivered the same message, the same high value product from the beginning. Now, before we go to scaling, so clinical excellence and 5-star patient experiences. Do you feel, from watching you guys grow this practice, I feel like you have delivered both with excellence from the beginning. What do you feel, what can your community and your patients really count on? Promote Thrive for a second. Pretend that, because I want other chiropractors building their practices to hear it from you. What is your commitment to the families in the community you serve from Thrive?
Yeah, it's hard to separate those two, but we were just talking yesterday at a team at the training that the one thing that no matter what, even if there's other factors going on, something gets in the way of the clinical results and the clinical changes, and we're looking at their progress exam questionnaire and they're still stuck, little changes here, want to see more. you get to the next level and it's like, what was your experience? What was the care and concern by the doctors? What was your team? Never isn't a 5 out of 5. And that's the one that we can control more, right? There is clinical stuff that is more unpredictable, right? And there's things that you're going to get way more frustrated by, but there's never someone that is going to come through and experience care that's not going to know that they weren't immensely cared about, that they weren't immensely thought about it, and we went out of our way to create amazing experiences for them. Just a couple months ago, we put in organic kombucha and cold brew coffee on tap. Got a little kegerator going now, so we make the patient experience amazing. Yeah. But that can't be the only thing. Like if that was the only focus and there was no results, no impact.
It's the human part that you bring.
It would fizzle out. We'd get people excited, but then they're like, well, wait, ultimately I can get my coffee elsewhere and kombucha's not that good and not going to keep coming. But yeah, it's both.
Andrew, you just shared a perspective I have never once had. I don't want to even talk anymore on the podcast. I want to play that clip for everyone 50 times over. I've never thought about that. So if you think about, we do it digitally now. Okay, but everybody get this picture all the way in your mind. Andrew just said something that literally will transform your practice, and nobody pays attention to page 2. So write it down as page. I'm going to write it down as page 2. I'm going to bring you onto a PX training, and we're going to teach this to the tribe. This is absolutely that pivotal, because page 1 is the subjective clinical results, and that is up to neurophysiology and innate intelligence and all the different things, and principle number 6 and principle number, which takes time, principle number 24, which is limitations of matter. So there is a lot of uncontrollable factors outside your control for sure on page 1. Page 2, which is when we used to print them, that's how are we doing? What's your practice experience with our CAs, with everything? 1,000% controllable. Yep. Son of a gun, man. And patients will not leave. Page 1 can look mid. Page 1 could be worse. They could be detoxing. Yeah. And they will stay through for care for life as long as you crush page 2. But if you do not deliver on page 2, they're gone the moment it gets tough or results don't come as fast as they want. And when it comes to chiropractic, healing is not linear. It's not always fast and it's not always smooth. So if you are entirely dependent upon the practice success you have is entirely dependent on page 1. And by the way, we're not giving anybody a get out of jail free card. We're in charge of getting sick kids well and keeping well kids well. But page 2, son of a gun, brother. That's awesome.
And I don't think I had thought through it as much as we have recently with having an associate in the last 6 months and talking through some more, like, not just the adjustment X's and O's, but the patient experience, the communication. And the way I framed it to her was, this stuff matters because if we ultimately know and believe that they need to be here a lot to make changes, then we need to set it up so that they can easily be here a lot and so that they want to be here. And so those things are in a way clinically connected because they get you to that end result. And so that's the way we framed it, is that you might feel like as the chiropractor, you don't want to do those other pieces of the puzzle, but you're going to make it harder to help people.
And by the way,
because you're not going to get them there.
Technically, you don't do much of page 2. Your team does. Yeah. Your systems do.
Absolutely.
That's that. I'll just leave it at that. Your team and your systems are in charge of day 2. You are the leader, and the so you're in charge of that team and those systems. But the delivery of that every single day, every single patient, every single week, that's up to your team. So page 2, and I suppose a lot of people probably don't even ask those questions. So that's your real tangible take home is go back right now. If you are already asking them, are you reading page 2? Are people really having a 5-star experience over and over and over again? You're absolutely right. Like, we never miss page 2. It is just never missed. Okay, that's awesome. That is so usable, and that is so scalable. Mm-hmm. So what is scalable is a product, because our product, 1A, is the clinical results, 1B is the patient experience. I love it. When I asked you that question, you're like, I don't know if I can separate these two. And I love that you didn't. You took page 2, and when you deliver with such excellence, they're going to stick around longer to allow neurological restoration to kick in and get its job done, because it's going to take longer than they want it to take. Yep. Okay, so the scalable component of our practice is really all of the pieces coming together. But as you now choose, and that's actively where you are, right? You're here this weekend with the team and leadership with your whole team. We're letting loose with Brick Builders and the high-level mastermind from NPX, and you're ready to scale. You're ready for some gasoline. So what do you find is working right now that has brought on your incredible associate and your team, and what do you think the focus needs to be when you look to scale the practice to these next many base camps?
It's that broad word that we need, that we're going to define more and dig into more in Brick Builders, of leadership. But it's like, what does that actually mean is really getting to it. And so the things that come to top of mind are, one of our core values is ambition, like pushing to grow, getting outside of your comfort zone. And that is the one I've got to model the most, but that's the one that I've got to nudge the rest of the team forward. Because especially based on their background, their family, their experiences, if that doesn't come naturally, that one might need more of a nudge than being, caring and kind and loving. And like, that's easy. Like the personality match, they're not going to be at Thrive if that doesn't come naturally, but it might need that nudge. So learning that in the leadership, and then just finding what pieces we need to add to the team to get more efficient. Like just our marketing CA last week, we met with a local digital marketing agency just to figure out, okay, we do all the organic content and we're crushing it, but how do we get more people at our workshops?
Same
how
concept.
do we make that more efficient?
Some gasoline on that?
Yeah. And so it's just, it's pushing people and keeping that ambition level high, but then it's also what other maybe missing who's are there. Like, and it might not even be a full who that needs to like fill a full-time role, but like small add-ons of places that are still causing me more headache and friction than they should.
Everything beyond this point is that broad term leadership. You're dead on. And for so many chiropractors, it's we learned this is the kind of typical, very much simplifying the stages, which what we always go through on this podcast is we take our docs that we're getting interviewed and we go through the stages and we say, okay, what are the important points to grow through successfully that stage? Yeah. Well, if we simplify the chiropractic journey, the first thing you need to learn how to do is get people better. That's adjusting. If you and you should, as a student, primarily really isolate your child. Maybe isolate is a little bit too heavy of a word, because as early as you can start to think about running a successful business, awesome. But a lot of chiropractors will almost go into the business stuff too soon, before the chestnut book hits and before they have the certainty and the skill set and all that. So focus entirely on your job as a chiropractor, the one that goes on the receipt, which is the adjustments. Yep. Now, a lot of chiropractors focus so much on that, they get into practice and they get hit with a ton of bricks. They're like, oh, I'm a business owner too. I'm a communicator too, a marketer too, a communication conversion expert too. And so you get hit with that and you're like, dang, this is a journey, 3 to 5 years if you're going fast to get good at marketing and branding and communication, right?
Because part of that is just the momentum and the consistency that builds. You can't necessarily fast track it.
You can't cheat code it. No, you can't. And then that works. And then you have kids and you're seeing 300, 400 a week and you're not as young and you're not as energetic. And then leadership arrives on your plate and it is the largest, heaviest plate ever. And here's the conundrum that we are committed to solving, and we've just stepped up another level with it with Brick Builders inside chiropractic. Because leadership is so difficult, I have seen the vast majority of even successful chiropractors not even try. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they tried and they failed 3 times over and they gave up. I said this yesterday to our group. I know a lot of really powerful, impactful, well-known chiropractors, and I don't know the name of a single one of their team members. I don't know their associate names. I don't know their office manager names. And I want to change that. And I get why people would give up on leadership and actually scaling beyond $1 million and building a $10 million practice. Because if you think 0 to 500 is hard and 500 to 1,000 is hard, try after that, because now it doesn't only take the skill of leadership, but you got to go through those 5 levels of leadership like we taught. So we won't necessarily get into that in detail on this one, but what I will give you as the take home when it comes to scaling is don't get it twisted. Systems do not scale a practice. People scale a practice, and what people need is a leader who is a highly skilled, wildly impactful leader. So that is my advice to Andrew right now, and that has been my journey is, my goodness, was I awful at that, and I needed to go out and seek mentorship and read the books and listen to the podcast and then I went and shadowed too. I went inside companies that I knew had incredible, I went and toured and got in on it, and they let me sit in on meetings and I watched how they interact with their teams, and I just experienced leadership so I could bring it back home. All right, so speaking of bringing it back home, what has been your favorite parts, I don't know, like, what do you love most about being a PX doc?
I think this is so convenient, the timing of this being right after that PX Club call, because this is exactly what I was just trying to share with those students at Life, was that it is just so much easier and so much more fun. You put it this way of, even if this isn't the route to practice that was the most impactful and changed the world the best, even if you just cared about it from a logistics and systems and a business perspective, it would still make sense. It would. And so when you get to do that, when really Thrive is made up of people that are just carbon copies of us, right? It's like young families who care about their health. So it's the people that we go to church together with and we go to school with and you just like hanging out with. And so it's more fun. It is just easier in the sense of that differentiation. Like, I don't stress about trying to capture every single, around Cranberry Township Facebook groups. When someone asks for a chiropractor, I kind of hope Thrive doesn't come up.
So true.
Unless it's like, hey, my baby is struggling, in which case they already probably found us. Yep. They're not posting on that group. So I'm not stressed about that side of things. It's just the simplicity and the focus, I think, is the biggest thing that makes it just a more efficient and easier process.
Yeah, and efficiency is fun because efficiency prevents exhaustion, and most successful chiropractors aren't having that much fun because they maybe aren't serving exactly who they really would love to serve. Family. That's tonight when we get all done. We're going to that. I'm going to a country concert out in a pasture, which is, that is literally like where my DNA thrives. And we're taking some of our team and we're taking some of our patients. Because they're all family. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this mix of like, we do this life together because we're all so aligned. Yeah, fun, fulfillment, and joy comes from simplicity and efficiency and consistency. And you are the perfect model of it.
Let me hit one more layer on that, because I know I've thought this when listening to similar interviews or chats or seeing people just from afar. That doesn't mean it's easy. Like, no, sure. Like if Laura was here, if my wife was listening to this, like, I don't want her to think we're painting some fake picture of like, oh yeah, this is a breeze and there's never any late nights, there's never any hard times.
He's always happy.
Yeah, life is easy. That is not the case at all, but it is so much easier. And that's that's the framework I tell parents about chiropractic. Like, there's nothing I can do that's going to make parenting your kids easy, but easier is what we're shooting for. Like, nothing about being a business owner. They didn't sign up for easy, right? We joked about the ideal HRV for us as entrepreneurs. It's not in the middle of the green box. It's like skating just in the corner, the edge of it. So it's not going to be easy. So if you're like listening and feeling like you're doing something wrong because like life is hard, no, it's just you're choosing what hard you want to handle, and that's the right path.
I love that you bring the green box into it, because I wanted to close with some lightheartedness about the fact that we spent all these years just really, really working on being a world. Our goals are a world-class husband, a world-class father, a world-class chiropractor, a world-class team leader, and then we're trying to golf.
Yeah, and world-class golf games next.
Is it though? I don't like. Where is your speaking of belief systems? Because I might need your help. Let's turn the microphones here now. My belief is fading fast for any chance of becoming, because I am short, stocky, hyperactive, impatient. How are you doing this?
You have to. I'm terrible, so I don't know. But you have to embrace the bipolarity of one time you're like everything's good and you're ready to rock, and the next time you just retire and you're never golfing again. So if you're just okay with that, I think it's great.
It's true. And HRV is a great metaphor because like when we're golfing, if I were to shoot an approach shot and it is on the fringe, right? So it's not out of bounds. So most of our patients, most successful business owners probably have a completely OB out of bounds HRV. They're statistically successful, but they are burnt out. Their HRV is flatlined, right? Yeah. And for us, I made the joke yesterday in the group with a bunch of leaders. I was like, if you can get on the fringe. So if you think of the HRV, if you run an inside scan, which you should, those are amazing. They change. I mean, you can't have a neurologically focused practice without measuring neurological function. Yeah. But when our really, really, I don't like the word busy, when our very, very productive, committed, driven, incredible parents, when they get that little white dot right on the fringe, the amount of celebration I do with them is insane. Because they're in a season where bullseyeing that thing is not necessarily going to be a healthy goal. And I know that on the surface that sounds blasphemous, but what you get to do with yourself and with your patients is set goals that are absolutely have huge visions and huge goals, but don't mistake reality of the season that you're in. You will be way happier if you understand this is hard. I'm so glad you closed with that, brother, because, and that is actually my perspective to golf. I'm messing. I don't stress at all, because the last thing I'm going to do is go out there and expect to be successful.
Exactly. It's setting expectations.
Yeah. Go to a Perfect Storm workshop. I expect to be successful. It's my 500th one, right?
Yeah.
So I just love you. I think the world of you. The respect and admiration we have for you and Laura. I see the boys and Selah. I know for sure they are going to be leaders and change makers and impact makers in their community. We each have 4. The odds of us having at least one PX doctor as a child has to be legit, right?
It's decent.
It's decent, right? So there's just so much more fun to come. There's so much more joy to come. And for those of you listening, there is so much more of these incredible interviews. And I'm gonna be peppering in these solo podcast episodes where I get in there and I say, okay, these are perspectives and these are strategies that they haven't been taught to you. And that's why so many people. So stay tuned to this podcast. If you want to have not just a thriving, wildly impactful practice, but you want one that has that differentiation, that has that perfect alignment and fit with your sole purpose, and simultaneously is successful, because we don't think, oh, I'm just here to serve and I'm so servant-hearted that I have an excuse to not be successful in my business. And we don't just go heavy on the business and forget that we're servants first. We do both. So if you want a both life, your practice and your life for thriving, your clinical page 1, your clinical results, and page 2, your practice experience are both awesome, then you stick with this podcast, you get with PX, because we will get it to you. So please subscribe, please download, please share, and please post it up on your socials in that way, because this podcast is absolutely, really quickly, I'm making the commitment, we're early on this one with you getting interviewed, one of the first ones, brother man, second one officially. We are going to grow fast, and we need your help growing this mission and vision within chiropractic fast, because we are taking over for the pediatrician, and there is millions of sick kids everywhere. So us getting our collective crap together as fast and as completely as possible is essential to fulfilling the mission, which is 1000% about them. Every kid counts. We'll see you on the next one. Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.